everyone, it's Pastor Arden again. Welcome to day 2 of our Technicolor Journey VBS. You remember, all this week we're learning about how God can use, even when the bad stuff happens to us, God can use it for good. And so let's practice our memory verse that we learned yesterday. It goes like this: you tried to harm me, but God worked it all for good. And again, that verse just reminds us about how even when bad stuff happens, God can make good things happen at the end. And that's what we're going to learn about in the story of Joseph. If you remember, yesterday we talked about how Joseph was given a very special coat by his dad, Jacob, and that special coat that was rainbow colored, it made his brothers very jealous. And then Joseph ended up having some dreams where it made it seem like he was more special than the rest of his family members. And that made both his brothers and his dad really mad at Joseph. And so in the end, Joseph's brothers threw him into a pit, and then they sold him to traders who took him to Egypt. Things are not looking very good for our friend Joseph at this point. But let's read in the Bible and see what happens next. Let's see what happens to Joseph once he makes it to Egypt. This part of the story is called Pharaoh's Dreams. And I don't know if you know this, the word Pharaoh, that is just the Egyptian word for king. So let's see how Joseph is going to come into the king's dreams here in Egypt. Joseph had many hard times. His brothers sold him to a group of traders. He was taken to the land of Egypt, far away from his family, and was put into jail even though he hadn't done anything wrong. Joseph thought, "How long will I be here? I didn't break any laws, but I'm in jail." He sighed, "At least I know God is with me." Many months later, 2 men who had worked for the pharaoh were also put into jail. And one morning, Joseph overheard them talking. One man said, "What does it mean?" "I have no idea, but I hope I never have a dream like that again. It was terrible," the other man said. "Mine was too," the first man replied. Joseph asked, "What's wrong?" They answered, "We had weird dreams last night, and we wonder what they mean." Joseph said, "Tell me your dreams, and I can explain them." The men described the dreams to Joseph, and God helped Joseph explain their dreams to them. 2 years later, Joseph was still in jail. But one of the men Joseph had helped was with the pharaoh. And Pharaoh told him, "I had a very scary dream last night. I wonder what it means." That man remembered Joseph and told Pharaoh about Joseph's way of explaining dreams. Pharaoh asked for Joseph to be brought to him. He told Joseph, "First, I dreamed I was standing by the Nile River, and out came 7 healthy fat cows. They were eating grass, and then 7 ugly, sick, skinny cows came and ate the fat cows." The pharaoh continued, Then in another dream, 7 plump, healthy ears of corn grew on a cornstalk. Then 7 thin, rotten, unhealthy ears of corn grew and ate the healthy ones. God helped Joseph, and Joseph could tell the pharaoh what his dreams meant. They mean that for 7 years, Egypt will have plenty of food. Then there will be 7 years when there is not enough and the people will go hungry. The pharaoh knew something had to be done. He put Joseph in charge of the whole country. Joseph saved food for 7 years, getting ready for the years when there would be a shortage of food. When there wasn't enough food in many countries, the people of Egypt had plenty. God helped Joseph know what needed to be done. With God's help and love, Joseph did well even through the worst of times. Wow. So when we picked up the story, Joseph had gone into Egypt, and not only had he been taken to a place so far away from his family, but he'd even been put into jail for something he didn't do. And then one day he overheard 2 men in jail who were talking about their dreams, and Joseph knew that God had helped him in the past interpret dreams to know what they meant. So he told those 2 men about their dreams. But unfortunately, things didn't get better immediately, right? Joseph still was in jail for 2 more years before one of those men was in a position where he was next to the king, Pharaoh. The Pharaoh told him, "I had this weird dream," and that man remembered Joseph and was able to go get him out of jail so he could come and interpret the king's dreams and tell him what they meant. If you remember, the king had these weird dreams about 7 healthy cows and then 7 skinny, sick cows, and then 7 healthy ears of corn and 7 sick, skinny ears of corn. And Joseph told him that meant that there'd be 7 years where they'd have plenty of food in the land of Egypt, but then there'd be 7 years of famine when there wasn't any food and the people would go hungry. And because God had put Joseph in all these positions, because he was in jail and he met the man who then remembered him years later to tell the king, and because Joseph was able to help tell the king what the dreams meant, Joseph was put in charge of collecting everyone's extra food for those 7 years. They had plenty of food, so they could store it up and have extra when those 7 years of famine would hit and there wasn't any food growing. Wow, isn't that amazing how God directed Joseph's life so that all this bad stuff was happening to him, but God was still able to be there with Joseph and help it work out for good. Because of Joseph, the people of Egypt didn't starve because he was there to help tell them to save their extra food. When we come back tomorrow, we're going to get to see Joseph's family again, and we'll see what all happens with them. And again, how God helped, even through all the bad stuff Joseph went through, helped good things come out of it. And that reminds us that even when we go through some bad things, God is still with us, and God will still help good things come out of it. So I hope you will do your craft and play some games today, and then I'll see you back tomorrow for the rest of the end of our story. See you tomorrow. Bye, friends.